Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the Chief Constable says she's committed to finding the killer of Alistair Wilson. A complete reinvestigation has been ordered into the murder of the bank manager who was shot on his doorstep in Nairn nearly 20 years ago.
We are absolutely committed to getting justice for that family. And nearly 20 years on, the effect on that family is unimaginable.
We're at the Labour conference where the Scottish leadership have come under scrutiny over the so-called freebies scandal. Also tonight, we hear from one man about his battle with what's been described as the world's most dangerous eating disorder.
I started to engage in really abusive, self-abusive behaviours because at that time I felt, well, this is what I deserve, which I obviously didn't.
Around 1 in 3 type 1 diabetics develop disordered eating, which can lead to them not taking insulin in order to manage their weight. 10 years after marine protection areas were introduced, dredging remains legal in some of them, and campaigners say the seabed is being damaged.
In sport, Rangers' new interim chairman calls on the club's major shareholder to stop public criticism and back the board.
And Olympic gold medal winning swimmer Duncan Scott is inspiring youngsters to take the plunge and learn to swim. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Monday's programme. The Chief Constable of Police Scotland has said her officers will try to build bridges with the family of a bank manager whose murder has been unsolved for almost 20 years. Alistair Wilson was shot dead on the doorstep of his home in Nairn in November 2004. At the weekend, the family released a statement saying they had lost confidence in the force. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
On the 28th of November this year, assuming the coming weeks pass without a breakthrough, this notorious murder will have gone unsolved for 2 decades. Alistair Wilson was shot dead on his doorstep by a killer who dumped a handgun in a nearby drain. His family say they have lost confidence in Police Scotland, their relationship with the force damaged beyond repair. Today, its commanding officer was asked what she wanted to say to them.
We are absolutely committed to getting justice for that family. And nearly 20 years on, the effect on that family is unimaginable. We are absolutely committed. We've been working with the Crown Office on this. There has been an extensive investigation over the years. There is a new senior investigating officer, there is a new team, and there are further lines of inquiry that we will commit to in order to get justice. And we're committed to doing that.
The father of two's family said they didn't want to comment on reports that the police recently called off plans to arrest a suspect. They say their request to meet the Chief Constable in person was refused outright. The family say they've asked for a meeting with you. Is that correct? And why did you feel it was inappropriate to meet them?
I haven't got any plans to speak to the family direct at this stage. I think it's important with a new senior investigating officer and family liaison officers that they build a relationship. The family's views in relation to us are not positive, and we are trying through the new SIO and those family liaisons to build those bridges and provide confidence to the family that we will get justice for them.
Scotland's top law officer has instructed a new team of prosecutors and police to reinvestigate the case, considering all the evidence afresh, pursuing any new lines of inquiry. To carry out a prosecution, the Crown Office has to be convinced that there's sufficient corroborated evidence that the crime was committed by the alleged perpetrator. Only then will this case move forward.
Well, Dave is here with me now. Dave, so that was one of a number of interviews the Police Chief Constable was giving today about her wider plans for Police Scotland. What did she have to say?
Yeah, she was announcing a vision for policing in Scotland by the year 2030 with a 3-year business plan. It's not going to grab headlines, this stuff, but it is important. She says that when she took over the force, the strategic landscape was cluttered and confusing. The front line was overstretched and under-resourced. She says she's going to place a far greater emphasis on community policing, and that will mean that they're going to have identifiable and accessible officers in every community out and about on foot. So, Bobby's back on the beat. They've acknowledged, though, that won't always be possible, clearly, in some parts of the country. They've got a 10-year plan for police stations and buildings. Some of that could involve decisions which are controversial in communities. And of course, as always, all of this will, or much of this anyway, will depend on funding. So, we'll have to see how much of the vision here actually becomes a reality.
Yeah, indeed. OK, thanks, Dave. Now, Labour's top Scots at Holyrood and Westminster have addressed the party's autumn conference in Liverpool this afternoon, echoing their colleagues' calls for optimism in tricky financial times and insisting the UK is not entering a new age of austerity. The Scottish Secretary, Ian Murray, said the party could be trusted to weather the current storm, while the Scottish Labour leader, Anna Sarwar, took aim at the SNP for alleged failings throughout their 17 years in power here. But both men have come under scrutiny as pressure grows over the so-called freebies scandal in their ranks. Our Westminster correspondent David Porter has more.
A decidedly dreich Monday in Liverpool. After weeks of gloomy economic predictions from the new government, the weather seems keen to play its part. But Labour now wants to point up the positive, with a promise of better times ahead.
As the Prime Minister, the Chancellor just before lunch, and Anas have said repeatedly, there will be no return to austerity.
One undoubted bright spot is Scotland.
Come on, stand up, stand up. Stand up and take a bow.
A year ago, Labour had just 2 Scottish MPs. Now they have 37.
You see, Conference, for lots of you, there was only one incompetent government you had to get rid of. But in Scotland, we were stuck with 2. So at the general election, we got rid of one incompetent government, and in 2026, we finish the job and we get rid of the other one.
And with an eye on those elections, this prediction.
A brighter and more prosperous Scotland. A Scotland where everyone is helped to thrive. That is what we offer. That is the change we need, and that is the change we will deliver. Scottish Labour, the party of change and hope. Conference, that's the future we will deliver together. Thank you.
Scottish Labour's 2 most influential politicians together. It's also emerged that both attended a football match in Liverpool at the weekend as guests of Scottish salmon. The party says it will be declared in the usual way. Meanwhile, opponents keen to take aim at the Scottish Labour leader.
One of the things that struck me was that it was very high in rhetoric and it was low in actual substance. There was no detail of what he would deliver. There was just buzzwords like change, they'll make a difference, but nothing of any real substance there.
The conference slogan is front and centre. After talk of economic gloom and rows over donations, Keir Starmer will tomorrow hope to use his speech to re-emphasise his key message. David Porter reporting Scotland at the Labour conference in Liverpool.
Well, let's get more from there now with our correspondent Rajdeep Sandhu. Rajdeep, a big focus there on the economy, but the fact remains that a Holyrood election is looming in 2026, where the party has high hopes. Can they deliver?
Well, that was the message that we heard from the Scottish Secretary, Ian Murray. He was saying to the party today that they need to deliver on the change that people voted for. Now, the problem for Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves is that the change that they want to deliver is long-term. The Chancellor talked about a decade of national renewal. And as you say, there are Holyrood elections in 2026. And of course, wrapped up in the optimistic language that we heard from the Chancellor is the reality that she will have to make probably unpopular decisions for her party, like the ones that we've seen around the winter fuel payment in the budget coming up in October. So there will be nervousness within the Scottish Labour group about what is to come and how much change can really be delivered in the next 18 months and what they can go with on the doorsteps and back any accusations of sleaze or cuts.
Yeah, and David touched on the spectre of sleaze looming over the party with all the talk of freebies. Has that affected the moods?
Well, there have been people I've spoken to today and yesterday who have said that the donations and taking the donations were a mistake, there were a misstep, some frustration at the way this has all been handled. One senior Labour politician told me that Keir Starmer needs an Alistair Campbell. He was Tony Blair's spin doctor, someone who could kind of get a grip of things. But I think the problem for Labour with this is that this is a story about unfairness, and that sticks in the back of people's minds, unfairness that they have to pay for their own work clothes, and that will be something that the Labour Party will need to work very hard at trying to wipe away that impression.
OK, Rajdeep Sandhu at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. Thank you. To some of the day's other stories now. And a former Castle hotel near Falkirk has been damaged in a large fire overnight. 6 appliances were called to Airth Castle at around 1 o'clock this morning. The fire service said they found a well-developed blaze within one part of the building. The Castle Hotel was a well-known wedding and function venue, which closed down last year after going into administration. And a smartphone app to help skin cancer patients look out for recurring symptoms is being developed at Aberdeen University. The AI chatbot will enable people who've been treated for melanoma to upload images and information about skin changes. These would then be reviewed by staff who could give medical attention at an early stage if required. Now, sticking with health, and a greater understanding is needed of what's known as diabulimia, where diabetic patients develop an eating disorder. That's according to medical experts. Healthcare Improvement Scotland has published new guidelines in a bid to ensure better treatment for the condition. Now, at the last count, there were more than 31,000 people here living with type 1 diabetes. Of them, around a third are expected to experience an eating disorder in their lifetime. Hope Webb has met one former sufferer who welcomes the new intervention.
I did a few operas in here and I watched a few shows as well. So it just feels, really cool to be back here.
It's been 10 years since Lawrence Smith set foot inside the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. Some of his happiest memories are as a student at the prestigious Performing Arts Institution. But it was also a time of deep struggle. He was suffering from both type 1 diabetes and an eating disorder.
I think it's really hard to divorce food regulation from the diabetes, because it can be the thing that gets you into a lot of bother if you haven't eaten enough, but it can also be the thing that saves you. You have the tendency to stop looking at food as being this nice thing, it can be viewed as medicine, as a tool.
A concern around body image led to a dangerous relationship with eating, exercise and his insulin use.
I started to engage in really abusive, self-abusive behaviours, because at that time I felt, well, this is what I deserve, which I obviously didn't. And it's hard, looking back, I have so much compassion for that guy. Because it was really tough.
Recent research shows a third of type 1 diabetes patients go on to develop a form of disordered eating. And now Scotland's National Healthcare Improvement Body has created a new set of guidelines for healthcare professionals. It raises awareness of the relationship between both conditions and calls for early and urgent intervention. At the Royal Cornhill Hospital in Aberdeen, the Eden unit can care for up to 14 people suffering from serious eating disorders.
Hello, how are you today?
Staff here are regularly seeing patients admitted after reducing or stopping their insulin intake.
Patients, I think, often do feel quite ashamed, embarrassed. They worry about telling either their diabetic consultant or, their psychiatrist that this is what they're doing. I suppose I would just say that, we're here to help. We're not judging people for those things. These are illnesses. These are serious illnesses.
The hope is that a greater understanding of this condition could better support people like Lawrence, who has now lived happily in recovery for 8 years. Hope Webb, reporting Scotland.
Now, 10 years ago, new laws were brought in here aiming to protect our seas and what's in them from harm. But a decade on, environmental campaigners say so-called marine protection areas still aren't working properly. They say fishing has still not been restricted in more than half the sites. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane has been to a protected area near Rum in the Inner Hebrides, where it's claimed damage is being caused by legal scallop dredging.
We're leaving the small harbour at Arisaig on the coast of Loch Arbour. and heading around 20 nautical miles to the north side of Rum in the Small Isles Marine Protected Area. It contains a rich array of habitats, breeding grounds and species whose future is of great concern.
There's a Creole boy, I think, there, so we maybe want to avoid that. So,
These environmental campaigners are using a remotely operated underwater vehicle to examine the state of this protected seabed.
Seeing something now, Phil. What do you think?
Within minutes, the team spot clear evidence of recent fishing.
There's some broken scallops and there's some very artificial looking lines in the seabed.
Those parallel lines running left to right are carved by the gear of a dredger being dragged along the seabed, scooping up everything in its path. Quite different to what this flattened seascape would look like untouched.
I think it would definitely be more three-dimensional. So right now it's quite like a barren seabed with just these kind of lines going straight across. It's a bit disheartening.
This is what it should look like and did look like just 4 years ago. Rich in marine life and the sea plants providing nursery grounds and shelter for young creatures.
And very obviously sort of ivory-looking shells like this. This is a scallop which has been smashed open.
Reviewing the footage on dry land, and it seems the dredging is recent. Not illegal, because after 10 years, ministers still haven't brought in any restrictions to this protected area, and that's frustrating.
what we've seen today is that in some places, tucked away in teeny tiny corners, there's an abundance of life, and there's an abundance of, young fish waiting to come through into populations above. But what we've seen also is that where these harms are being allowed to occur, we're seeing flat monocultures that look like, the gravel aisle in a garden centre.
The Scottish Government says it's a complex and challenging process to decide on fishing measures, and that environmental impact assessments are currently underway. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation adds there needs to be a balance between conservation and food production. Kevin Keane reporting Scotland, Rum.
OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Amy Irons and a bit of boardroom drama at Ibrox.
Yes, that's where we're starting this evening, Laura. Thanks very much. Good evening. Rangers' new interim chairman, John Gilligan, is calling on the club's major shareholder, Dave King, to get behind the board. King says the club's current problems are due to a lack of proper leadership and has offered to step back in as chairman. Today, speaking to the media for the first time since John Bennett gave up the chairmanship due to health reasons, Gilligan says enough is enough. Here is our sports news correspondent, Chris McLaughlin.
Stepping up for now. John Gilligan, a former director and lifelong fan who knows the club well. But he takes over during troubling times, not least because the club's former chairman and major shareholder Dave King thinks he should be there instead. His criticism of the current board has been stinging.
Has any director or any person at the club said anything about Dave? No. Will I ever say anything bad about Dave? No. So in answer to your question, do I wish you would stop? Yes. Behave like a proper shareholder. Don't do what you're doing.
King says the gap between the club and rival Celtic is huge and self-inflicted. He thinks it'll cost £50 million to bridge it.
I don't think you can put a number on it. I think the gap at the moment is considerable. But you just have to win your games, get back challenging for the top spot. And then if we get into the level of Europe that we hope to get into, then the gap can change quite quickly.
So just how big is the task ahead?
I think John's got a huge job in his hands. I think the Rangers fans are pretty unhappy at the moment. I think it's been a very difficult season for them, on and off the park. We've had the Copeland stand redevelopment being delayed, the move to Hampden, failing to qualify for the Champions League, losing to Celtic.
This club is no stranger to boardroom struggles, and neither is its interim chairman. Today, John Gilligan was open, frank and clear. The gap between his club and Celtic is considerable. There's no appetite for a Dave King return, and those who are here wish he would keep quiet. Chris McLaughlin reporting Scotland, Ibrox.
Well, we've seen the second managerial casualty of the Premiership campaign already after Hearts sacked Stephen Naismith following their 8th consecutive defeat of the season. The Jambles fell to a 2-1 defeat at St Mirren when Tolose Olesanya's first half goal proved decisive. Liam Fox will take interim charge as Hearts begin the search for their 7th head coach in 10 years. Well, let's take a look at some of the numbers behind Hearts' dismal start to the season, shall we? 9 games played in all competitions, no wins and just 3 goals scored in that run. They've conceded 15 in that time. Some notable defeats as well coming in the League Cup when the Championship side Falkirk knocked them out at the first hurdle, and in the Europa League playoffs the Tynecastle side bowed out without scoring a goal against Czech side Victoria Pilsen, meaning that they then dropped into the Conference League. And in the league, as you can see, they are rooted to the bottom spot. Kilmarnock may just be above them, but the Ayrshire side still have a game in hand. Naismith, well, he has since released a statement saying he is disappointed but is grateful to the board, adding he believes they are the right people to take the club forward. One former player, though, disagrees.
They're now left with a mammoth job of getting the right person in, and only they'll know behind the scenes what direction they want to take the club in. The fans are dying for something just to hold on to. And these guys behind the scenes, the club isn't in turmoil on a financial level or anything like that. My feeling is these guys behind the scenes who are running the club aren't running it well enough. And the manager gets the sack. Why do the guys who are making the decisions, the big decisions, why do they not get the sack?
Scottish heavyweight boxer Nick Campbell says he wasn't surprised by Daniel Dubois' victory over Anthony Joshua, having spent 5 weeks sparring with the champion in the run-up to his IBF title fight at Wembley. Dubois dismantled Joshua in 5 rounds on Saturday, and Campbell, who only turned professional 3 years ago and has sparred with the likes of Tyson Fury in that time, has been told by Dubois' coach to use it as a springboard for his own career.
He's an incredible fighter, as you've seen on Saturday night, so it's been really tough, really challenging at times. Can't really thank the lads for giving me the opportunity to go down there, obviously to be involved in a massive event, but obviously to progress myself, learn, challenge. You're a sparring partner, but the mentality is I'm there for myself, selfish, trying to improve, work hard, you know, dedicate myself to my craft, and in turn, it obviously helps them prepare for the fight on Saturday night.
And Laura, there's more of my chat with Nick on the 9 this evening.
Good stuff. Well, I am going to stay on the sporting theme for a little bit, if that's OK, Amy. Yeah, because with the number of swimming pools in Scotland drying up as councils make tough cost-saving decisions, how do we inspire our next generation of swimmers to take the plunge? Well, this man might help. Olympic and Commonwealth champion Duncan Scott, who was on hand this afternoon to encourage youngsters in Edinburgh to find their way in the water, as Katrina Renton reports.
Legs up against the wall like that, head down blowing bubbles.
These 9-year-olds have been getting some special tips during their swimming lesson from an Olympic gold medalist. Duncan Scott was helping promote the importance of competence and confidence in the water.
He taught us how to go under the water and push off.
And how important is it to learn to swim?
Very important. He was giving us challenges.
And did you do them?
Yeah.
And did you do them well?
Yeah.
Did he say you were good?
Yeah.
Wow. You are a brilliant swimmer, Jamal. Fantastic. And should everybody learn to swim, Jamal?
Yeah.
There were 47 accidental drownings in Scotland last year. That's more than 3 times the rate in the rest of the UK. The aim of the new national swimming programme is to prioritise key water safety skills for all primary children.
It's so important, you know, that water safety thing, drowning prevention is what it's all about. You know, that's the key thing. I know not everyone's going to grow up to be an Olympic swimmer, but the actual aspect of learning a life skill is just crucial. You know, it's a necessity for everyone. And then out with that as well, you've got kids that are then progressing and learning how to swim, enjoying it, that social aspect as well, learning a new skill. So, yeah, I think the balance of that is, you know, it's great to see.
The gold goes to Scotland. It's Duncan Scott wins gold.
Duncan has won 68 medals in national and international competitions, including 2 Olympic golds. And he's competed in every Commonwealth Games since Glasgow 2014, with another one coming back to the city in 2026.
I'm really looking forward to the prospect of another home Commonwealth Games. You know, I've kind of been spoilt with that, but yeah, look, I think it's going to be a real positive, not only for people that do sport within Scotland, but also the nation as a whole to get behind all the athletes.
There you go.
Perhaps some of these children will go on to achieve great success like Duncan. But in the last year alone, 6 council pools have closed in Scotland. In this climate, mastering the safety basics has to be the priority. Katrina Renton, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Now, it's Laura McKeever on the 9 on the BBC Scotland channel tonight, and she's been speaking to visually impaired football fan John and his guide dog Sam, and they've just become the first man and dog to visit every single SPFL stadium together.
I wanted to just see what accessibility in general was like throughout the whole of the SPFL, so I thought, well, I'm a big football fan and I quite like exploring things like this and going to new places as well, so it was a great opportunity just to try and see if we could tick off all the 42. It was varied, but every single ground that we visited, we had just the most amazing, positive experience.
And you can see that full interview with John and Sam on the 9 later. OK, Chris is here with the weather. Looks OK there.
Autumnal,
Autumnal,
I think,
yes.
with the leaves on the ground, and autumnal is the watchword for the weather this week. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yes, we've had quite a mixed picture of weather today. Certainly the week ahead will be delivering autumnal fare, with outbreaks of rain across Shetland continuing to track south in towards Orkney in the far north of the mainland. Elsewhere, cloudy, misty, murky, dank, drizzly. Temperatures overnight around 8 to 10 Celsius, turning breezy around the north coast and the Northern Isles, the Western Isles too. To tomorrow, and that wet weather that we start the day with in Inverness will continue to track south, affecting Perth, Stirling, Dundee, Edinburgh, perhaps in towards Glasgow as well through the afternoon. Further south, brighter skies across Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway in towards the borders, but with it a number of showers. Temperatures in the southwest at best 15 degrees. Further north it will be cooler, and for many it will be cloudy with those outbreaks of rain set to continue. Towards the west coast and towards the Hebrides and Western Isles, some sunshine, same too in the far north and Northern Isles. With it though some showers and a keen north wind adding quite a cool feel. Tomorrow evening and tomorrow night the rain still with us through the central lowlands and pushing southwards, then turning clear and cold. This is tomorrow night. Temperatures in Inverness 2 degrees, Aberdeen 4, through the towns and cities of the central belt 7 degrees. That means we start the day on Wednesday with some bright skies, but a rash of showers in the north and cloudier conditions in the south. Through the day, that cloud will extend its way northwards, so after that bright start, for many clouding over. For all, it's cool. Temperatures 10 to 13 Celsius at best, but the wind's lighter. And actually, looking at the air mass chart for the end of the week, you can see we've got these straight northerly, so delivering rather chilly conditions, but some sunshine. So this week, a mixed picture. Showers, the longer spells of rain at times, temperatures at best 11, 12 degrees for some, colder than that. And overnight, it will be cold as well. I've got Edinburgh here just to show the nighttime temperatures. You can see the general decline through the course of the week. And of course, other parts of the country will be colder, certainly in the countryside too. So certainly autumnal fare on the way. That's the forecast, Laura.
We've just got to lean into it now, don't we,
Yes.
Chris? Thank you. And that is Reporting Scotland. I'll have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone in the team, enjoy your evening. Good night.